1. My mom's side of the family has been open to the paranormal since my great-grandmother, as far as I'm aware, when she and her husband found a burial ground on the property where they built the family home. My dad's side is not open at all, to the point where he loudly and proudly exclaims that he won't believe until something scratches, abducts, or otherwise pokes and prods him. And as we were about 5 months from going on a trip to Edinburgh, and going into the catacombs, he was proclaiming this at least once a day. I assume that is what drew the man, not really sure how else to classify the thing, as he appeared not long after the daily proclamation started. Now, it is important to know the layout of the rooms for this. The house had a straight hallway that ended in my door. When standing in my door facing the hall, my then 7-year-old brother's room was directly on the left. My dad's room was about 4 or 5 feet further up the hall and to the right. It was about 2:30 to 3 a.m. when it appeared. I woke up for seemingly no reason, and saw the time on my bedside clock. I don't remember the exact time, only that it was right around 3 a.m. I sat up and, when sitting up, faced my open bedroom door. Standing there in the lit hallway was what I can only describe as an emaciated man. His limbs were too long, too thin, and just overall wrong. It's the only way I can think to describe it. I remember looking at him frozen and thinking that he looked like a jungle cat, crouched on those too long limbs. It had thin, oily black hair that only hung about chin length. Of all the things that had me terrified about this thing, this stretched skin, predator poise, and too big presence for a thing that thin. Of all those things, nothing had my heart stopping like this smile. It was all teeth too wide and just reinforced the wrongness of this thing. It never came into my room. It did go into my brother's room that first night. It came again to my door for the next 2 nights right around the same time. It never went back into my brother's room, but it did start entering my dad's room. I remember crying myself to sleep every time it left, terrified that if I left my room, as if my open door was actually anything of a deterrent, it would come back, or it would be able to hurt me or get in. Again, not like there was anything actually there to keep it out, but terrified teen logic is only slightly better than terrified toddler logic. Instead of hiding under a blanket, I was hiding behind an open door. I remember having my grandmother bring me a bundle of sage and trying to cleanse the house that way after the second night. When it showed up again that night for the 3rd time, I salted around and in the house. I don't know for sure what it was. I don't know if it was corporeal, or some sort of spirit. I just know I am still terrified of it. I have been looking into the crawler, but I'm not sure if it fits. Has anyone else had any experiences with something like this? How did you get rid of it? I would really like to know in case it decides to come back. I'm also open to questions about the situation, though I think I managed to put everything here. 2. Background. From 1993 to 1998, every summer I attended a Christian youth camp for girls. Camp lasted 4 days, 3 nights. There were about 200 girls at the camp, and it was about a 1.5 to 2 hour drive away from our homes. Some of the camping areas were tent only, others had A-frames, and at least one of the camping areas had longhouses. The campground is called Ensign Ranch, Kittitas County, Washington. You can look online to see pictures of what these different camping areas look like. It's a really safe campground, and we had a lot of fun every year. In the evenings we would tell spooky stories, pretty typical stuff for youth camps. On the last night of the camp in 1996, I was 15 at the time, there were several of us girls on the top level of our longhouse. It was past bedtime, so we were quietly telling scary stories. I had told a couple, one with the help of a friend, I'll call her Lily. I don't remember the specific stories from that night, just typical and the hook was hanging from the car door stuff. After a couple of hours of spooky stories, someone else was talking, and I was getting really tired and could hardly keep my eyes open. Then some of the girls asked me to tell one more story, so I start telling a story, making it up as I go, Just typical on a dark night, in the woods not far from here, type of beginning. Next thing I know, I wake up, lying flat on my back. As I'm waking, I realize I'm still talking, but once I became aware of my own talking, I couldn't remember what I was saying or trying to say. I was fully awake then. I finished by lamely saying something like, "They all die at the end." I looked around me at the girls who were staring wide-eyed at me. A couple of the girls were quietly crying, mouths open in horror with tears streaming down their faces. My friend Lily whispered, "That was the creepiest thing I've heard." The girls that weren't crying nodded in agreement. I said I was tired and we should all go to bed. As all of the other girls moved away to their sleeping bags, I asked Lily and another girl, Sarah, what I had said. I admitted to them that I had fallen asleep and couldn't remember anything. Lily and Sarah exchanged glances, and Lily paused before saying, "That just makes it worse." Sarah nodded in agreement, and said she didn't want to retell it because it was that creepy. Now at this point, if it had just been Lily or one or two other girls that were in that group, I would have thought they realized I was asleep and were just messing with me. But Sarah was, and still is, a very serious person, who doesn't have much of a sense of humor, doesn't like pranks, even innocent ones, and is honest almost to a fault. So I went to sleep feeling unnerved but exhausted. A few hours later I was being shaken awake by one of the adult camp leaders. She told me to gather my things and follow her. I sleepily and awkwardly carried my stuff down the ladder, then followed her outside. Two other camp leaders were standing next to a tent. They told me to put my items inside and then come talk to them. Inside the tent were two of the younger girls, 12 or 13, that had been listening to the scary stories, and who had been crying when I woke up. They wouldn't look at me, just laid there sobbing. When I went back outside to talk to the leaders, they said Lily had showed up at their tent with the two sobbing girls. The girls were crying and kept saying they wanted their parents to come get them. Lily explained about the scary stories and about mine being the one that made them cry. The leaders asked me what I had said. I admitted I had fallen asleep, and honestly, I didn't know. The leaders said Lily refused to tell them what I said, and the two girls just sobbed harder the more they tried to talk to them. They explained to the girls that they weren't going to call and wake their parents at 3 a.m. and have them drive over an hour just because of spooky stories. Plus, we were all going home the next day. As punishment for scaring the girls, the leaders made me sleep in the tent with them, while the leaders went to sleep in the longhouse. The girls cried for a bit, and then we all fell asleep. They were both gone from the tent when I awoke in the morning. To this day, I have no idea what creepy story I told. No one that was there has ever been willing to tell me any of the details. Several years afterward, Lily told me that she would randomly have nightmares because of it. The only details I have ever answered were, my voice sounded the same as usual, my eyes remained closed for the majority of the story, which creeped them out more, and the story was coherent and made sense, up until the end when I lamely finished speaking. Again, if it had only been Lily and a few of the other less serious girls, I would know they were just screwing with me. But Sarah and most of the other girls that were there, including one that cried most of the night, even being part of a prank on me, just doesn't seem probable. 3. I've always been a believer in the paranormal since I was a little kid. However, I never had an experience of my own that I can remember. That is, until just recently. About a month ago, I got a new job at a warehouse. It requires me to get up at 5 a.m. to get to work on time. So by the time I leave my house, it's still nighttime. One morning, I was on my way to work, and had just turned down the last road I needed to get there, when I noticed an oncoming car with her headlights on. All of a sudden, I saw this dark figure run out from the right side of the road, directly in between me and this other guy. I slowed down, anticipating an accident to happen. But the figure made it to the other side of the road and then completely disappeared. Now keep in mind that side of the road the figure was running to was a wide open parking lot with streetlights all around with nowhere to hide. I had also been following it with my eyes because, like I said, I expected it to get hit by the oncoming car. The figure just entirely disappeared once it reached the other side. Like I said, the oncoming car had its headlights on, and so did I, but when the figure passed between the beams, I couldn't make out any discernible features on it. No hair, no clothes, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Nothing but smooth black. My immediate reaction was, did I just see that? And for the rest of the day I tried making sense of what happened. I may be a believer in the paranormal, but I have a skeptical mindset, so I'm not gullible about every ghost video or story I see and hear online. I told myself it was probably a person making the stupid and risky decision of getting across the road at that moment, and the lack of detail about it on my tired eyes, or attribute the whole thing as just seeing things with tired eyes. However, when I passed the same spot where I saw the figure the day before, I couldn't believe my eyes. The figure had come from a fucking cemetery. That sealed the deal in my mind, that I had seen a shadow figure. At the same time I came to the realization, I felt a tightening on the back of my neck, like someone had taken their thumb and forefinger and started squeezing the back of my neck. It didn't hurt, but it was definitely noticeable. I haven't had an experience since, but I always feel like I'm being watched when I pass that spot in the morning. If it was just a person running across the road that morning, then there's a lot of questions that need answering. Why were they in a cemetery at 5 a.m.? Why did they run across the road in the middle of two oncoming cars, instead of just waiting for us to pass? The cemetery also has a locked spiky fence all around it, that's around 5 to 6 feet high, so how did they manage to get over that fence? Where did they go when they crossed the road? This was my first paranormal experience, and if something else happens, I'll update. Something tells me, though, that whatever haunts that cemetery knows I've seen it, and it will try to contact me again. 4. I have had many experiences with the paranormal. I wouldn't consider myself sensitive to paranormal things, but my boyfriend believes I am. In the past, in his haunted house, I felt energies, and was always the one who got the worst of the hauntings, nightmares, feeling ill, all the paranormal shenanigans. I don't really let that stuff scare me anymore, at all, as I know spirits feed off of the fear, but all of us are almost certain my roommate's mother is haunting us. For context, their mother passed away very recently in February 2019. It has been extremely hard for them, and I wanted them to move in with us, since they have been a good friend of mine for years. I heavily empathize with them. I know how hard it is. 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend and I were playing with our cats in the hallway upstairs. Our room and my roommate's room are directly opposite from each other, so there is a hallway connecting them. My boyfriend was facing their room, playing with the cats. He called out to our roommate in their room, but no answer. He goes in there, door was opened, to find them. He tells me that he saw someone about 5 feet tall near my roommate's bed, which is away from the door. He said a black silhouette looked at him, but quickly looked away when my boyfriend tried to get a better look. He said it definitely looked like a woman with hair, just as a black shadow-like figure. I instantly went into the room and the energy was just sad. I felt nauseous, almost. We tried to communicate, but the energy suddenly shifted and it felt normal. I told my roommate, and they seemed distressed by it, which I completely understand. My roommate confirmed their mother was about 5 feet tall, and I also knew her. 2 nights ago, my boyfriend and I were sitting on our bed talking. He has a nightstand that has some tools on it. Suddenly, 2 books from my bookshelf and a bunch of stuff from the nightstand were thrown out of the shelves, almost forcefully. My boyfriend was staring at it as it happened, and I saw it in the corner of my eye. The bookshelf and nightstand were close to each other, so we both knew it happened exactly at the same time. My boyfriend was visibly uncomfortable, and had goosebumps all over his arms and neck. I instinctively called out, "Please leave, you are not welcome here right now," and immediately the energy shifted to normal again. My boyfriend was shaken up, but I didn't feel scared. If this was paranormal, I feel like the spirit was merely trying to communicate. However, I know boundaries must be made with them, or else they can get aggressive. This was a massive change from an apparition to straight up throwing stuff, which I am not okay with. I do not feel as if this is a malevolent energy. I haven't felt anything strictly bad. I came here to ask if it would be appropriate to have a seance to attempt communication. My roommate desperately wants to, but I don't want to either disappoint them if it's truly coincidence, or nothing at all, or they become even more distressed if this is truly their mother trying to communicate with them, and us. It's still a very fresh wound for them, and I would never want to do anything to hurt my friend or make them uncomfortable living here. My other roommate is pretty scared of the whole thing, but has not had anything happen to him directly. Any thoughts or theories about this would be appreciated. I am apprehensive. I have a lot of knowledge on spirits, despite being somewhat of a skeptic myself, and was wondering if it would be safe or cause more harm than good. 5. Some background. My college roommate, Jane, has a spirit who is attached to her that she calls Frederick. He seems like a bit of a hitchhiker. She said he started following her around after freshman year at another college. Jane's roommate was a sensitive and had a lot of ghosts attached to her, and I guess Frederick decided to attach himself to Jane. Frederick makes his presence known in a few ways. He moves objects, sometimes taking them and putting them elsewhere, sometimes throwing them off shelves. He leaves bruises on Jane sometimes, like handprint bruises. She said he plays her guitar too. Overall, she doesn't seem that concerned. Recently, I started experiencing things too. Mostly it was the sounds of things moving in my room, like the light rumbling of bags or a cup being scooted on a counter. And sometimes I swear I heard what felt like someone was putting pressure on my bathroom door handle. Like they wanted to turn it, but they couldn't do more than touch it. I also started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, like a vapor. I ignored all that. Then I started feeling depressed and physically ill. I was severely depressed last year, so I know what it's like. And I'm on meds now and haven't had any issues until now. It was so sudden, too. So I really don't think it's my mental illness. It's been a struggle to get to class and to fall asleep. I feel drained all the time. I didn't actually piece together it might be the result of an entity until last night. It was like 12:30 at night, and I was playing solitaire on my phone to exhaust my head enough to sleep. Suddenly I heard a knocking, confident and loud, on my bathroom door. I knew it had to be my bathroom door because of where it was coming from. This is my second year of living in this dorm, and I know how knocks from other places sound. You can hear someone knock on the door above you or on your neighbor's door, but it's gotta be dead silent, and it's always muffled. This was definitely from and in my bathroom, and I was the only one in my dorm room. I even asked my suite mates if they'd done it, and they said no, and I believe them. Now, I admit I do suffer from exploding head syndrome. It's not really a syndrome as much as it is a phenomenon of when someone hallucinates a loud sound just as they're drifting off. For me, it can range from pots crashing to gunshots to explosions. But it always happens just after my thoughts dissipate to a point where I'm half dreaming already. I was wide awake when this happened. What can I do? I don't want to banish him if he really is harmless. But I cannot continue to be drained or hear things like that knocking. I don't mind if he's here, but I need boundaries. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 159. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I always get creeped out recording these stories. Every little creak, every little hint of a noise in the house or rustle outside, it always puts me on edge. Wasn't as bad as that time I was recording black-eyed children's stories and suddenly I hear crying in the distance. That one creeped me out, even though I'm now fairly sure it was a fox or some other animal. But it definitely sounded like a child crying. Okay, let's see. I deprived you guys of a live stream last week, so hopefully I do one either Saturday or Sunday. I should have more time. So far, at the moment, it looks like I'm going to be able to clear out another week, which is lovely, and then I'll take another break near Christmas. Just know I can do it if I need to do it, so that's helpful. Still not sure what we'll be doing on the live stream. I'll work out something entertaining. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.